I have a message. A message that is loud and clear and does not mince words. We've come to take our country back.
For those who are already fatigued by the pace of political bluster and those making promises about what they would do if elected, buckle up, take the Dramamine, because this is only really just beginning. A kick into the battle starts today in Nashville, Tennessee at the National Rifle Association's annual convention. Most of the top Republican possibles are there, and they know they have a national forum and plenty of dedicated GOP eyeballs and ears before them. What they need to say, what they should say, and much more political as we welcome in to MidPoint, the associate editor of Sabato's Crystal Ball, one of the most respected and accurate political tomes that emanates from the University of Virginia Center for Politics, Geoffrey Skelley. Geoffrey, good to see you again.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Geoffrey, with all these people that are sitting at the NRA convention, and we're, of course, waiting to see if any of the real big names take the podium here, but you've got basically everybody is there, from Scott Walker to Bobby Jindal to Ben Carson to Jeb Bush to Mike Huckabee. What is it that they have to push forward, knowing they're on a national stage? They've got to get to the base that's there, but at the same time, they've got to be careful what they say so that they don't misstep in a long campaign.
I think it's no question it's a balancing act, as you yourself just said. I think to some degree, it's very easy in these circumstances to toss red meat, if you will. But in this day and age, with everyone having an iPhone, someone might be live streaming with Periscope or something with the stage behind them. Basically, anything you say is going to be available to the mass public. So really, I think it's sticking to kind of safe Republican lines, if you will, talking about protecting the Second Amendment, just kind of generally without perhaps getting too flowery in what you say.
Let's talk a little bit now about some of those candidates. And we heard from Rand Paul coming in, who is the latest one to say that he's going to run for president. Almost immediately, he has been under attack for a lot of flip-flopping. Of course, he's selling sandals on his website, which were called flip-flops, and now they're called sandals. Brilliant marketing move. I'm glad somebody caught that. But there are a lot of people who talk about Rand Paul. They're very impressed, but they say they don't know what he stands for. Is that a fair criticism?
I think Paul's issue is that to some extent he has been walking back or walking away a little bit from some of the views that I think people tended to think he had when he was first elected to the Senate in 2010, particularly on foreign policy. He's often been characterized, wrongly or rightly, as something of a dove, and that may have been a good position for him to be in a couple of years ago. But with kind of the rise of ISIS, developments, Ukraine, Russia, a world that seems less safe than ever, we saw Paul actually react to that by offering an amendment to the budget to raise military spending. It just kind of the situation calls perhaps more for a hawk than a dove, and given that the Republican Party has historically been a relatively hawkish party, Paul's positioning perhaps puts him at odds with that a little bit.
What about the Quinnipiac University poll that came out this week that showed Rand Paul actually leading Hillary Clinton in a pair of key swing states? We got it in Colorado and in Iowa. It's not much, but should we make anything of this, or is this just a bounce?
I think early on, this kind of polling doesn't mean that much for 2016 itself, the actual general election race. But I do think that if Paul is going to make the argument about electability, and there are a lot of politicians on the right, a lot of Republicans who claim he isn't that electable, I think this kind of runs in the face of that. And he can use that as evidence that he can be competitive with the likely Democratic frontrunner nominee, Hillary Clinton, and use that perhaps to get some support from establishment figures who are reluctant to back him, whether we're talking about public support or money. So I think he can use that fairly as an electability argument on his side.
So now we've seen Ted Cruz come out with a big splash. We have seen Rand Paul come out, a little minor splash. Marco Rubio is likely going to be the next Republican who'll come out next week. What is it that he's got to do to set himself apart at this point?
Well, it seems like Rubio is going to position himself as something of an ideas candidate. There was a good article in National Review about this a little while back. But we're already kind of seeing that with his tax proposal, along with Senator Mike Lee from Utah, that Rubio wants to be someone who's out there proposing big ideas, new plans. To some extent, all of the candidates are going to do this, but he seems to be getting ahead of the game on this.
But here's a good idea. When you talk about that tax code, this is very complex. It's going to reward families with children while it slashes taxes on business and investment income, keeps a top-rate personal income tax of 35%. That's a lot higher than a lot of Republicans would want. So is he almost committing GOP Harry Carey at that point to go with a plan like this?
Yes. So it's kind of a two-sided sword, a double-edged sword for Rubio as being the ideas candidate, is that you can put these ideas out there, but they may open you up to criticism. And there are definitely some aspects of the tax plan that might be considered heterodox to a lot of Republicans. And similarly, he's going to probably get attacked for his efforts toward comprehensive immigration reform in the Senate a couple years ago with the bill that passed there. So, I mean, from Republicans many Republicans have been very critical of his position on that. I expect that you're going to hear him accused of having supported amnesty a lot during Republican debates and in the primaries. So there definitely are two sides to this coin for him. And so how he handles that, well, remains to be seen, but he's going to have to definitely fight off that to some extent.
So I got about 45 seconds before we take a break. Who are we missing here, Josh, in the opinion of you and the folks there? I mean, we talk about all these candidates. Are we missing one, though, that really might come up and surprise us that you're still waiting for?
In terms of...
The Republicans.
Yes. At this point, in terms of surprising us, that's actually kind of a difficult question. I guess to some extent what I'm waiting for is to see when Scott Walker is actually going to declare.
There it is.
And because Walker, in many ways, his positioning at the moment seems to be very strong. We're obviously very far out, but national polling, he seems to be doing pretty well. And if he can remain a force, it's tougher to see a road for someone like Rubio, who's going to need Bush or Walker.
There's a guy I was looking for. Just wanted to find that one surprise in there to see if it happens. Geoffrey Skelley, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks.
Coming back, we'll still wait and see what's happening in Nashville. We'll talk more on politics when we continue right here on MidPoint.